Hey, I'm Chris Parsons, the host of The Last Click. I'm on episode number, I think, 5 or 6. And today, very humbled and honored to bring in a longtime friend of mine, well over 20 years in the industry. We met back at our time at Walmart Canada and have been attached to the hips ever since. Two dedicated retail, direct-to-customer retail careers. Super happy. And I think, Tim, this is the first time I've ever interviewed you on a podcast. So excited to have that opportunity. I would love, Tim, for you to introduce yourself to the audience.
Yeah, so as Chris said, Tim Mayeur, I've been in e-commerce in retail for about 20 years now. Kind of baffles my mind a little bit when I think about everything I've been involved, and a lot of it has been with Chris over the years. So it's great to be interviewed for this. I've held many roles. I worked for large companies like Walmart, also small, scrappy startups, and experienced a little bit of everything, back-end operations, being responsible for digital marketing, and then general management. So it's been a combination. And so I'm always looking forward to the next thing. I'm launching and building, growing, right? So
yeah, I love that. I think the important piece for people to realize is that you have that. You can get your hands dirty, go and figure out an entrepreneurial spirit, small teams, get things done, or you can operate at the executive level, big retail, larger budgets, larger teams, and neither of those phase you at all, which is pretty incredible.
It takes me a bit of adjustment though, Chris. So
Yeah.
to switch to like a large company after being in startups, you have to, recalibrate for having to interface with a lot more people, weigh in the decision-making process, what's important to everyone else versus when you're nimble, you may not have a whole bunch of resources, both financially and also people. But so there's obviously a lot of shifting that has to happen in a person's mindset. So it's not an overnight I join a company and then boom, I'm right in the perfect mindset to do it.
Yeah, so true. I think it is a mental shift going from the scrappiness to the independence, and then going to a larger organization that a roadmap that you think could be done in 3 to 6 months might take a year and a half to 2 years to execute, because there's so many competing projects and priorities within an organization that you really have to find the chops to really get the organization on board with your decision making.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's start off with your journey. Let's go way back to our time at Walmart, and you went from, and maybe I'm missing something, but from a loss prevention role, you joined me on the start of Walmart Canada's e-commerce team, and then you had this incredible growth through Walmart. And I would love for people to understand the risks you took, the betting on yourself, all of those things, that it may have been an uncomfortable decision for you to go from some of these opportunities, but you did have the courage to roll up the sleeves, learn the roles, take on bigger teams, etc. And I think that's so important, because a lot of people throw around the term of imposter syndrome, and that they don't, like, they're kind of faking it until they make it type of thing. And I disagree with all of those things. I think the only way to grow is to challenge yourself, and you are an embodiment of that.
So I have to give kudos to you, Chris, on this point. So when it came to Walmart, I started in loss prevention at Walmart. I actually started as a security guard at the front desk on contract and worked my way up to director of e-commerce operations, which was a pretty big feat. But throughout my first early career with loss prevention, it was more of like, this is your role. This is the boundaries you operate in. This is what's expected of you. And then, moving over to the web, it was more so what's possible. And we took a lot of risks together, and you empowered me to take risks. And part of those were even like, people are more scared of death than they are more scared of public speaking than they are of death, right? And
Right.
You empowered me to get up on stage and talk to like 300 vendors. I think one room had like over 500 people in it. And so I was an introvert to begin with. And so just challenging me, saying, listen, you can do it, empowering me to do it, let me make mistakes on things. That's the most important thing. And I held that with my staff too throughout my journey of my career. Is whenever someone needs to grow, I'm like, just make a decision to go for it. I weigh out quickly what's the worst that can happen. And if it's not going to ruin everything by launching it, and just do it. And then you can, as long as you have a plan in case things don't happen the way expected, and you can pivot afterwards, right? So I think just having that empowerment from someone above who just says, listen, like, I'll clear out these barriers for you. I'll help you out. I'll back you on the decisions that you made. Just being able to handle that.
Yeah, I thank you for the acknowledgement on that, but I have full credit that has to go to Luke Hume and Tony Fanson and Carmela. Carmen was amazing. All three of them. And I think retail's changed a lot since we had the opportunity to work with them, where, like you said, as long as you were making decisions that wouldn't cripple an organization, they gave you the flexibility to test and learn, and true test and learn, not analyze everything so that way you could never move forward, because you can always find a reason to say no to something. You can put a path forward or a message. It's like when you watch people debate, you can always find a reason to stay stagnant. And those folks really taught me early on, as they were great mentors, to be as strategic as possible, but not get weighed down with trying to find the perfect result, and just go out, do it, and grow. And that's what I tried to do with you and many others.
So you probably don't know this, but when we were carving out our kind of destiny at Walmart and our various areas of track, I know that there was other people that were potentially interested in the operations track. So you were solid, you were director of marketing, you were a pro in that, right? But with operations, I actually went into a meeting room with Gail Blank, who was a CIO at the time, and I said, isn't there someone else who's like better qualified internally to take this on? And she just reassured me to just like learn what I need to learn and able to make effective decisions, and don't get analysis paralysis is what you're talking about. Like dig into the numbers enough where you can make a sound decision, but don't overdo it. So just that's it. And that was the pep talk she gave me, and that's why I went ahead with that track. So, it's leaders like that who just give you those little tidbits of information to just kind of get your mind focused and performing that they think you can.
Yeah, I appreciate that with Gail as well. I think that opportunity to take a risk on somebody, to put them into a new area and allow them to infuse what they've learned from other areas and bring that into a new challenge is great. Because if you hire someone that's done the same type of role over and over again, you can kind of predict what you're going to get, and it's usually not change or evolution in that role. It's a pretty safe bet that they're going to rinse and repeat that playbook that they have, which is fine, depending on the maturity of your organization or what you're trying, how much change you're trying to put into the marketplace. But I think it's important for organizations to not just look at resumes and past performance, look at how well someone understands and how to connect the dots. Because I think if they have that greater picture in retail and a broader perspective, they can really be plugged into anywhere and grow. And I think that's probably exactly what Gail saw in you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And yeah, things have really changed over the 15 years when it came to e-commerce. I remember those early days we were talking about, should we invest in personalization? And the answer was no at the time, because of it just wasn't something that companies were investing heavily in. Now everything's about personalization. And multi-channel was a term that came later. It wasn't even really a term that kicked off when we were in the early stages of e-commerce. And now it's all omni-channel. But really it just comes down to customers and people in general just want convenience. They want things. They want things the way that they want them, right? So that means the products need to be perfect as advertised. Pricing, no hidden costs, none of that. Just everything's very transparent, and that they get it in the timeline that they're looking for. Which back then we were joking around that Amazon's training customers so that way they're going to expect products yesterday. And that's kind of what's happened.
That's exactly what happened, that sense of urgency. Even I find myself falling into that. I moved to Alberta, and when I order something and it says it'll be shipped the next day, I was used to getting it at like 11 a.m. in the morning the next day, and now it's arriving at 10 o'clock at night. And I feel like that's late, right? Because I'm like expecting it at 11 o'clock in the morning. So you do get... Well, go ahead.
That's the one thing that hasn't changed in the 15, 20 years. Is the number one reach out for call centers is still, where's my order?
Right, exactly. It's so true. Even though they have a tracking number. Let's get into, many people focus on how fast e-commerce has been growing and all the different changes, but what do you think has stayed exactly the same regarding customer expectations since those early days?
Yeah, so I think it's what it comes down to is trust, and trust that They're going to get the product that they ordered. It's exactly the same as it's described on the website. And again, there's no hidden costs. If there's something where they're doing cross-border, if there's duty charges and you get hit with those later, like that's crazy.
Right.
So
Yep.
like all those types of costs need to be built in when they're making a decision. And that it's just there in the timeline they're expecting, but it's also evolved. So it's to where they're expecting it to be delivered, right? So before it was you can just go into a store and shop, then it became you can go into a store, you can have it shipped to your home, and then it became to, well, I want to order on my mobile device and pick it up in store, and because I don't want to actually go through all the aisles myself, I want someone to do that for me. And then, as you mentioned, the timelines in which people are expecting orders to be delivered, the shift to same day, and the tightening of those cutoffs on orders. So I think it's just the immediacy behind it. I joked before, I think we've joked about this, is like if a teleporter was invented by now, someone had developed a teleporter, people would be using that. If 3D printers were able to just do what's in Star Trek for the replicator, then yeah, like customers would be taking advantage of those, just making the products at home themselves if it's something that's basic, using a device like that, or they just have something just zap into their living room. So I think that's kind of where we're heading, is just there's more pressure on technology to deliver on those sci-fi that are turning realistic expectations, right?
Yeah, I see that a lot. And the 3D printers is actually a great example because you can model so many things now with that technology. And I see a lot of people use it in the toy industry for building kids' toys and having instant gratification because they can get something pretty much daily from a toy perspective. I wanted to dive into your current role. You're now working with IMGadgets, and before I ask some questions, maybe you can tell us a little bit more about IMGadgets and how long you've been there and what your roadmap look like.
Yeah, so founded by IM stands for Ishim Manu, so it's their initials. Husband and wife, they're the founders of the company. They created IMGadgets about 15 years ago, being the first to bring to market a safety certified hoverboard, and then kind of expanded over the years into other e-mobility, scooters, e-bikes, and then realized the same sort of model that we were using could then lend itself to other categories. So we moved into office furniture. This year we're doing baby products. It's all the same sort of methodology. It's first looking and seeing based on research. So there's a lot of tools out there can tell you what's selling fast, what historic pricing is on various marketplaces. So pulling that together to research and say, listen, can we, this type of product, and based on the rating, customer feedback, can we design something better? And can we do it at a cost where customers would be happy to pay for it? So can we come out and be competitive in the market and then offer something a little bit different? For us, it's always been a prioritization around safety. That's how it started, is just bringing that one certified product. And we do that for across the board. So every e-mobility product we're focused on getting proper certifications for. And the reason being is not just like we consider it's kind of like with software as a service and startups. There's always this moat, right? They always talk about this moat of defensibility where other competitors can't play in. Well, having the proper certificates is actually a moat, and that seems so strange, but at the same time, it's real because I can tell working on the retail side, and you know this as well, the thought processes for marketplaces as a retailer was it's just additional revenue. They did not care about like what's really being sold unless it was something illegal, and if there was anything that the seller was doing that necessarily they shouldn't be doing, right? Like they just want to see product up there and getting revenue off it and taking their commission off of it. Now things have changed. So we've seen Amazon this year in Canada and the US say, listen, for e-mobility, you have to have a certificate. You have a cutoff to provide the proper paperwork, or your ASINs will be delisted. We're hearing buzz from other marketplaces, same thing. And so this thing that we thought it was our core belief that make sure we have a safe product is now becoming a standard across marketplaces. And the fact we set up those relationships, we had those already in place, it makes it easy for us to go ahead and make sure that we align with all these retailers and what they're doing with their marketplaces. And then we're seeing listings drop off now, so we're going to reap the benefits of that by just making sure that, number one, we cared about our customer enough to make sure that it was in the news that there's some e-mobility products that are lighting on fire, right?
Right.
So we put the customer first in all of our considerations, and that's just proved to be vital, and I think it's going to pay off in dividends over the years.
Yeah, I spent some time on your website, and what I appreciated about it is it's almost the opposite of the long tail, where you're not selling everything to a customer and being that destination for everything. It's more of that good, better, best approach, where it's so easy to shop. You almost have done the shopping for me, and I just have to pick something with the features and price point that I like, compared to other folks where you just have this endless aisle and there's like 400 of one item.
Yeah, so Chris, you'll appreciate this. Like, remember back in the day, we looked at the sales reporting like for Walmart. Very aged information, so I'm sure they don't care. But the number one product in terms of sales was always video game consoles.
Right.
Right. So
Yeah.
and then so from Walmart we learned the 80-20 rule pretty early on, and it's really a lot lower than that. It's more like 10 drives 90% of your sales, if not more, right? So I think for what we did, and I think the basis of our company is solid, is we do the proper research, we think like a customer, put them first on all decisions that we make, and it's ingrained in our company culture. We then see, okay, well, where's the opportunity? And we test it out. So we'll go to market, we'll do a smaller test, get it going, and then we see the pickup that we're looking for, we'll make a larger investment into it, it becomes part of our overall assortment. If not, we drop it. If there's negative customer feedback, it didn't go as expected. If we're getting those complaints come in, then we know, okay, this is it, let's cut it off and move on. And so just having that mindset as a business to know exactly when things are a go for just being part of our core assortment versus letting it go. Because we're making an investment into inventory, so it's you have to make those sorts of decisions, or you end up with warehouses full of things that aren't moving.
Yeah, we often walked the warehouses and saw dust on stuff, and would joke that these items are going to start to breed soon if we don't start clearing them out. So
yeah, like a pallet position with one item on it. Like, come on, like,
yeah,
we've seen
exactly.
this, and anyone in retail has seen this doing warehouse tours. So you just need to, inventory management is such a crucial point of success for any startup or mid-sized company. It should be for mass retailers as well, right?
Yeah. So while others in the industry seem to be making decisions to cut back, I've noticed IMGadgets posting. Looks like you're in a growth mode and you've had some roles come available. I wanted to see what your opinion is on the baseline skills an operator needs to cut through noise versus 5 years ago. What do you think are the priorities right now?
You know what? It's hilarious, just because we're reflecting on the past. So looking back at when my career started, the one thing that I was most valuable for in terms of skill set, was knowing Excel.
Right.
Like, being able to do pivot tables, VLOOKUPs, coding in Excel, like, that made me like a rock star at Walmart, right? So now that's kind of like, it's a given. You have to have anyone who comes into a role when you're dealing with large data sets has to be an expert in Excel. That's a given. They also need to know how to use AI effectively, and that means if you're using it to help come up with some of your keywords, like, you obviously need to use other tools like Google and whatnot, but if you're helping it to come up with some of your copy, you have to have the expertise to look at and weigh it out and be like, no, this is wrong, or sure, this is right, or build on this, and have a conversation with the AI until you get copy that's good enough to post. Inventory management we touched on. So with WFS, FBA, obviously there's costs associated to storing goods. With FBA side, there's penalties if you have goods sitting there for too long, they start upping the costs associated with it. And so being able to understand how much inventory to send over, so that way you can sell through it in the proper time and not incur additional costs without risking going out of stock and losing sales. So that's a crucial part of it. And before it didn't used to be like, sales didn't used to be heavily focused on forecasting and inventory management as they are today, right?
Right.
It's kind of shifted a lot, where that was kind of an independent role, and now it's an expectation. If you're doing sales, you need to be putting together solid plans, and your forecasts need to be like 95+% accurate. And also doing ads. So a lot of these, obviously there's agencies that get involved when it comes to doing DSP on the Amazon side. With Walmart, there's sponsored type ads, and same thing for Amazon. So there's similarities between these marketplace platforms. A lot of them are Criteo over the years as well to kind of manage their own, or they've developed their own sort of technology in-house, which is Walmart has evolved to over the years.
Yeah, I think the view into analytics and the insights really has evolved on the operational side, because I remember the days where you would present in the office and everyone would just talk about the items that were selling and celebrating that you sold video game consoles or the latest and greatest barbecue or lawnmower. There was hardly any discussions about the legacy items that have been just sitting there building up over the years in the warehouse. And then you would try to have a truckload sale or a clearance event to get rid of those. And sometimes those things were sitting there so long, I would classify them as antiques. So I think the access to data and getting that stuff to the forefront has really changed over probably the last 10 years, but it's a real big focus because you used to celebrate all those success of sales, but then you would never account the cost of the warehouse to those items, and it was just operating as a silo P&L, and you would be like, hey,
right?
right, exactly. And you had a lot of experience with that.
It's the structure of the company that plays a part in that. So in big retail, like generally there has been, this might have shifted over the years, but generally it's been your warehousing, fulfillment costs, all those are a different P&L entirely managed by a different group. And it's inventory will sit there like we talked about, collecting dust or one item on a pallet position until things are highlighted and brought by that warehouse team and be like, hey, listen, we need to move this product. Like, what can you do? Like, move it out. And you have X amount of time to clear some of this square footage out, right? And when you're in a smaller startup environment, you own that. So the thing is, if it's a smaller square footage, so if you're not selling something and it's sitting there keeping up warehouse space, you can't buy in something else. Like you're cutting yourself off. So you need to get those slow movers out so that way you can bring in those faster movers and allow more space for them.
Yep. I remember merchants really having a budget that was kind of endless, and now it's basically, here's your budget, and if you want to bring something new in, you have to make sure the other things are selling and moving before you can go and make a new purchase. Which is, I still think you need flexibility if something unique comes to the market to be able to increase a merchant's budget, but I do agree that there needs to be that discipline. From a next kind of conversation to jump into, when you think about retail and everyone talks about how you need to connect with the customers and create real emotional connections with consumers, you can have all the proper branding, messaging, flashy messages, sizzle reels, etc. that will engage with a consumer maybe in that moment, but beyond just having the pretty website, what do you think actually builds real lasting trust for your customers? And when they land online or they shop at a store level for products, what's the lasting component in the secret sauce that you have?
It's not rocket science, right? So it comes down to customers, when they make a purchase with you, they just want to have a great experience as anticipated, right? That's it. That's simple enough. So,
Right.
two things to that is, one, you have to encourage them to make that first leap forward and make a buy off your site. So the reasons to do that are, you got to have authentic reviews throughout your site. You have to have if there is any certifications that are out there that you can back up, have them prominent. Anything to do with returns policy, warranties, any of that information. If you're offering free shipping, call that all out, set their expectation, make them feel like, hey, listen, this is a well-shopped site. You're not the first customer to buy from this.
Right.
And so you can take the risk. You can make a purchase from them, and they'll take care of it if there's an issue with the order. That's it. And then once they do make that purchase, you got to make sure that you follow through on that. If there's an issue, we have a well-staffed customer service team, and we proactively reach out to customers. And that's something that's a little bit different than some places. Some places, their call center operation is just that. They're just doing inbound. But we reach out to customers for multiple different reasons. We want to make sure that they've had a positive experience with it. If they want to leave a review, great. If we find out in the conversation that their experience wasn't up to par, we want to take care of it. So that way we can turn them into advocates. And that's one thing that a lot of companies miss on, is If you can turn things around for a customer too who's had a bad experience, that can be a lot more powerful than a customer that just they got their expectation, right? Like they just ordered,
Yeah.
it showed up, they enjoyed the product, check it off a list. But if they've had a mess up, a memorable mess up, and you came in and you made an even more memorable solution for it, that goes a long ways.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny, I had a conversation with Roger from Brown's Shoes, and he's in charge of the customer experience team, and we got into the whole naming of the customer service team to customer experience and how critical of a decision that is, because you're going above and beyond with the word experience versus service means you're just going to react to any opportunities, but the customer experience is creating that through a whole ecosystem, whether it's marketing, operations, merchandising, and then post-purchase as well. So I love that you both are on the same wavelength with that. As we're getting close to 30 minutes here, I'd like to keep these a little bit tighter. I do want to get into a couple of other topics. So you've been scaling DTC, you're also managing marketplaces. With your experience across the direct-to-customer redesigns and massive marketplace channels, how should brands be thinking of their focus between owning the customer relationship on their own site and then leveraging the massive traffic that is out there on marketplaces? Because some people choose to ignore the marketplaces like they don't exist.
Yeah, and marketplaces are a huge component of our business. And I've worked at companies where it's been different strategies going in, where you price a little bit cheaper on your own site, you offer more of an extended warranty period if they buy direct. So that way customers can do research on these various marketplaces. They know that if they buy from Amazon, as an example, if they have a bad experience, Amazon will cover them and take care of them. And similar to how people who use PayPal to make a transaction know that PayPal will have their back, right?
Yeah.
So having those out there is great for first-time buys. But ideally, you want them coming to your own website. You want to own that relationship with them. You want to be able to market through them, because there's commissions involved with marketplaces that have gotten pretty hefty over the years when you add in the cost of fulfillment and warehousing into the mix, and then the cost of adsing as well. Yes, AI has come a long ways to help out with the targeting of ads, but then the cost per clicks have gone up over the years as well. So it's still an expensive proposition, where if you do a sale on a marketplace, chances are that sale is more profitable if you did it direct through your own website. So if you can build up your core website and use these as little silos where people are doing research and they feel comfortable buying on it, great. If they do more research and they figure out, hey, listen, we can trust buying directly from you, that's fantastic. You own that experience. And then you can grow your own presence over time. It's companies that have stayed away from doing marketplaces. I know there's a lot of sayings over the years as you need to have an Amazon strategy, right? So it's not something you can ignore. If you're ignoring it, you're losing revenue. You're losing revenue because it's a huge amount of eyeballs, and it's a number one driver of product research, and it's shoving people, like, they'll know your brand, right? Yeah. So even if you don't get the sales you want out of it, you're still doing marketing, you're still exposing your brand to a lot of traffic that would have cost even more for you to pay ads to drive, right?
Yeah. I try to get people to consider, with your marketplace and your core platform, is maybe you buy some unique items for Amazon. You don't have to necessarily have your full catalog on Amazon. You can create a unique experience over there that then allows them to build that trust with your brand, and then hopefully they come and explore you and shop directly going forward. So you don't have to, like, it's not all or nothing with these platforms. Come up with a strategy, maybe leverage.
Yeah. So, and we figured that out over time too, is with our new site design, is we can sell more expensive products directly through our website. And with marketplaces where people tend to be more price sensitive when they're doing their initial research, like more of those entry level works, right? So it's an interesting mix where you can select, okay, a different type of profile of products that you want to do direct, and you want to play around with those assortment. I've also done bundles. Bundles have been great in the past, where I've had items on our core assortment, and then you can buy 2, 3, 5 different ones all bundled together for different price points on marketplaces. You can play around with that a lot, but agree, there has to be some sort of flexibility, and the key goal is to drive something a little bit unique to your site to hook them in, right?
Okay, so I'm going to ask a couple more questions. One is, what in e-commerce today is a trend that's dominating the headlines right now that you think is either overhyped or just too talked about. Like, we've gone through all of the trends, whether it's been, the new Google search, or how Meta needs more images, or
So,
how search operates, and omni-channel shopping, whatever terms you want. Everyone starts talking about these buzzwords, and I would love your perspective on
it
what's
hasn't
overhyped.
changed drastically though. Like
That's true.
if you've been around long, like no, seriously, the technology has
Yep.
changed, sure. But if you look at it, like AI, like Google's change, making sure that content is authentic. They've always had a focus on making sure that it was authentic,
Yep.
right? They penalize companies for copy and pasting off of other websites. And now they're penalizing if you're using something that looks like it's just generated from AI and you don't have any credibility behind the author, right? So as much as we think things have changed with technology, a lot of those things are the same. You always need to respect that Google is just driving the same sort of types of behavior, where it wants things that are relevant to the customer search. If they're not relevant, then they lose out, even with their AI overview that they have. If it's not relevant, they know they'll lose out. So they're just making it, they're just, with the new technologies, just using the same playbook.
Yeah, I've seen that, where it's just a new title for something or new technology, but it really comes down, in my opinion, to the same three things that we've talked about 1,000 times: content, community, and then commerce, and in that order. And if you can get content right, you start to build a community that advocates for you. If you got the community, that's when you have real success on selling products, and you don't have to race to the bottom on price to get the attention, because you've got great content and a community that believes in you. And
Yeah.
you can constantly change the industry terms, but those three things, if you stick to those, you'll be in a great spot. Lastly, thanks for doing this again, Tim. I just wanted, with your experience, I love ending on, what piece of advice do you have for digital leaders trying to build a truly scalable online strategy today?
Yeah, so I think I was posting about this on LinkedIn. Don't try to do everything at once. Just don't do it. You get tempted with all these flashy headlines or something that's new and whatever. Just focus on the core. Look at what's going to move your business the most. What three levers? Just pick three levers. Get those right. You get those right, your business scales. Then you focus on the next three, and then you staff up accordingly to be able to do it. That's the way to do this. And we talked about it also as a digital leader. It's also your team, right? And so, what was empowered upon us and led us to our successes in the career, we have to pass that on and instill that on the next generation too.
Yeah, that's great advice. I think building the strongest team makes you successful. It's never a one-person show, and while sometimes the leaders get the acknowledgement and the credit for it, it's the team that's really behind it. So giving people ownership will always bring out the best in folks. But Tim, thank you so much for joining the Last Click today. I really appreciate it. It's fun to actually interview a friend in the industry, and I look forward to catching up to you soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.